Hi, this is Mary Feaster, and I am taking my educational policy analysis role in this presentation to talk to you about Diane Ravitch. So, a little background on Diane Ravitch. She was an education historian, an education policy activist, a research professor, author of many publications, and she was the former Assistant Secretary of Education from 1991 to 1993. She used to support standardized testing, merit pay for teachers, Common Core standards, school choice and charter schools, NCLB, No Child Left Behind, and conservative ways of thinking. So she now supports good prenatal care, de-emphasizing testing as a measure of success for teachers and students, smaller class sizes, full curriculum supporting the arts, and allowing teachers to teach without political interference. So as I listened to her speech, I took the liberal approach. What does typically mean if you're taking a liberal approach? It typically means that you are associated with the Democratic political party. In Spring's text, The Politics of American Education, it says that Democrats protect pluralism and multicultural values. Democrats protect the secular name of American government. Democrats believe poverty is the result of social conditions that impede equality of opportunity and that the government programs can help to eliminate poverty. And Democrats believe that government has a positive role to play in ensuring equality of opportunity. So the first policy I was going to look at from Diane Ravitch's speech was school choice and charter schools. I kind of combined the two because the two kind of go hand in hand. So in her speech, according to Diane, she says that school choice and charter schools promote segregation. They turn humans into consumers, not citizens, because essentially you are buying to go somewhere better and you're actually hurting a lot of the public schools in the areas. So instead of, what can I do for society, you have that mentality of what can society do for me? It's that me focus rather than what can I do to help others. Also, the funding choices takes away from funding public schools. So that money that they get from taxpayer dollars goes to school choices, goes to vouchers. It funds private schools. It doesn't help our public schools at all. It's taking money away from our public schools. They don't actually have more success than public schools, and if they do, it's because they exclude low-scoring students and students with special needs. Typically, charter schools can say yes or no when someone applies to come to their school. So that means they don't typically accept students who are English learners or students with special needs. So if they are doing better, which not many of them are, it's because they are choosing who gets to attend their school and who doesn't. So they can essentially pick the cream of the crop. She also states that they reward high-scoring schools and teachers and punish low-scoring schools and teachers. So if a public school is not doing well, then they are punished and they can be closed down and they could turn into a charter school, or if it's a school that's doing really well, then they get rewarded. It doesn't actually cost less money to fund a charter school or to fund the private schools, and cyber charters are some of the lowest achieving schools. When you look at the data, cyber charter schools do not have good success rates at all. So then when you look at her stance from the liberal stance, you can kind of compare the two. So according to liberals support public education and resist efforts to publicly fund private and religious schools. Any support liberals have expressed for choice has been limited to choice between public schools rather than between public, private, and religious schools. So Spring talks about this in his book. So they're not necessarily negating the idea of school choice, but they are saying that school choice should be between public schools, not private and religious schools. While Donald Trump states that he wants parents to be able to choose what school their child attends, Hillary Clinton states that she wants good teachers in all schools in every zip code around the country. I think this kind of shows that the Democratic way of thinking is that all teachers should be quality no matter where they are around the world. All schools should have quality teachers. We shouldn't just be putting quality teachers in just the public or just the private schools or the charter schools that are supported by the government. Joe Biden also states that if he were president, no private institution would receive any money from federal funding. That money would be going to public schools and public schools only. So to me, Diane Ravitch's way of thinking in terms of school choice and charter schools is in line with the liberal way of thinking. So the second policy, according to Diane Ravitch, standardized testing measures family income and education. It does not actually measure teacher effectiveness. She also says that affluent schools do better. She says that schools with a lot of poverty have worse test scores, that the greatest influence on test scores is family income, parental involvement, medical care, and nutrition. Again, doesn't have a whole lot to do with the actual teacher themselves. Testing should be used as a diagnostic tool. It should not be used to measure teacher effectiveness or student achievement. So Diane Ravitch, according to her, she believes that standardized testing is something that should be used as a diagnostic tool, not as something that should be used to measure teacher or student effectiveness. So again, looking through the liberal lens, Hillary Clinton states that there should be better and fewer tests. These tests should be used for diagnostic purposes, and that is what tests are designed to do. So again, that is in line with what Diane Ravitch says. Steve Bullock, a Democratic candidate, supports a reduction in standardized testing. He said, "We want to see growth in our children, but when I've looked at just the degree of testing all along, that's not how you assess a teacher, and that's not how you assess an education system." Again, if you go back to what Diane said, she said that much more of what goes into a testing score is not actually the teacher themselves. It has a lot to do with the home life, what they're being fed at home, what medical care they have, how they're being treated at home, how the child is as an individual as a whole. Bernie Sanders wrote, "I voted against No Child Left Behind because it was clear to me then, as it is now, that high-stakes standardized testing would not improve our schools or enhance our children's ability to learn." Again, from the liberal standpoint, they are implying that standardized testing should not be used to determine a child's achievement or a teacher's effectiveness. The two do not go hand in hand. A child who does not score well does not necessarily mean that they are not smart or intelligent or capable, and a teacher whose students don't score well does not necessarily mean that the teacher is not effective. There are many factors that go into what a classroom looks like and what a classroom is made up of, and it's not fair to associate the two together. Standardized testing should be fewer. It should be limited to a diagnostic tool, according to both liberals and Diane Ravitch. The policy issue number 3, privatization. According to Diane, she says that taking money away from public schools to give to private schools is not acceptable. Again, we talked about this earlier when we talked about charter schools and school choice. Public taxpayer dollars should not be funding private schools. She also says it's not fair or equal, and kids are excluded when they don't fit the mold. Again, like we talked about earlier, they only let certain kids in. So when we privatize, we are leaving a huge amount of the population out, promote segregation, as she said earlier. Schools should not be controlled or owned by billionaires or for profits. There are a lot of hedge fund managers that she spoke about in her speech that are owners of charter schools, and she said it's almost become a status sort of thing, which she does not believe is appropriate or they should not be run by someone with all that money who has really no input in education. She says an elected school board should have control over schools. Again, according to the liberal point of view, Joe Biden states that public schools should never be losing money to private schools, especially when these schools have not been proven to have higher scores or better outcomes. Again, when you look at the data, there is not data to prove or to support the fact that charter schools or private schools actually do better or provide a better education for students. The Democratic Party platform in 2004 states that instead of supporting private school vouchers that take away money from public schools, they support public school choice, including charter schools, as long as they are public and are held to the same standards as other public schools. So this part became a little confusing to me when it came to the liberal point of view and Diane Ravitch's point of view, because earlier, she stated that she did not support charter schools, and it stated that the liberal point of view did not support charter schools, but here they're saying they support charter schools as long as they are public charter schools and they are held to the same standards. Again, they should be held to the same standards. They should be able to meet the same goals and things that is set by the elected school board. So essentially what they're saying is it should be similar to a public school, and they're okay with it as long as it is similar to the public schools in that area. So this is a little bit of a difference between the liberal point of view, Diane Ravitch's point of view, and the liberal point of view that I read earlier as well. The fourth policy issue is teacher evaluation. According to Diane Ravitch, posting ratings shames teachers. She even spoke about a story where a teacher actually committed suicide because his poor ratings were publicized and he couldn't take it. Ratings do not take into consideration what the class makeup is. There could be a class full of English learners. There could be a class full of students with special needs. That is not taken into consideration when teacher evaluations based off of test scores are made. Teachers in non-tested grades and subjects get evaluated or scored based off of students that they don't teach or subjects they don't teach. Teachers in grades K to 2, teachers who are specials teachers all get evaluated on the same scale but do not actually teach those subjects or sometimes have never taught those students. She states that merit pay is not fair. It is not equal. It is not fair. We should not be rewarding people based off of test scores. Good test scores don't equal a good teacher. According to the liberal point of view, this is the one where I found the liberal point of view and Diane Ravitch's point of view were not eye to eye or equal. So, according to the liberals, Mike Bloomberg told reporters that they aim to reward teachers who do better. He states that monetary incentives typically seem to work. According to him, he says that money being a reward helped people's test scores go up. President Barack Obama also showed support for using test scores as a way to evaluate teacher effectiveness. He also stated that teachers that are rewarded will also be asked to take on more responsibilities to help further their schools. Again, they're implying that the more money you give somebody, the better their test scores will be. Under the Race to the Top plan instituted by Obama, states must agree that there are no barriers preventing them from having student achievement or growth as part of the teacher and principal evaluation. So this specific initiative was giving funding to states that agreed to follow a certain set of guidelines, and if they did and they met the goals and that, they would receive funding. Again, this does not go hand in hand with what Diane Ravitch is stating. She does not believe in using test scores as a way to evaluate teachers. She does not believe in merit pay and bargaining by using money to imply that one teacher is better than another and rewarding them for such. She believes in taking the time to actually teach the teacher how to be better, to spend a year of them studying and learning and watching others. Here are the references. So all in all, I would say that Diane Ravitch's point of view does overall line up with the liberal point of view, although there are some conflicting ideas.